Croeso pawb i'r cyfarfod pnawn 'ma. Welcome everybody to the Planning, Licensing and Regulatory meeting of the 3rd of June 2026. Please note that today's meeting may be recorded. This recording will be broadcast on the authority's website and may be used for training purposes by Democratic Services Department. All attendees will be in view of the camera, and by attending you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of these images and sound recordings being used as outlined above. First item on the agenda, apologies for absence. Do we have any? Nope. Second item on the agenda, declarations of interest. Members are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and prejudicial interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government and Finance Act 1992 relating to council tax, the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and the Members' Code of Conduct. Note: members are reminded that they must identify the item number and subject matter that their interest relates to and signify the nature of the personal interest, and, where members withdraw from the meeting as a consequence of the disclosure of a prejudicial interest, they must notify the chair when they leave. Are there any declarations of interest? None that I can see. Fantastic, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item number 3, minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any questions or concerns in regards to the meetings, the minutes? No?
No questions, no comments.
Fabulous. Can we have someone to move the accuracy of the minutes then, please?
I move, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. And can I have someone to second, please?
I'll second.
Fabulous.
Okay.
And so all those in, take it to the vote, all those in favour of moving the minutes?
Yep, that's carried unanimously, Chair.
Fabulous. If you can all put your hands down then. So move on to the next item on the agenda. That is item number 4, and that's P250199, Furnace Row, Ash Road, Thrwyddedu, and I believe David Cross is taking this.
Yep, thank you, Chair. I'll just screen share some slides. Okay, so members may recall this application was actually presented at the last committee, and at that committee a number of concerns were raised in respect of the height of the railings to be constructed above the gaming baskets along the sort of within that red outline area. There were concerns that there were a number of gates being introduced which would impede on the potential stepped access for residents, and there were the railing itself was to be finished in a green colour, and so that was deemed to not be appropriate. In response, the agent representing Welsh Water at that meeting agreed that they would take the proposal away and review further changes to the scheme which may help assist overcoming some of those concerns. So accordingly, we've got a revised scheme now which has been amended to essentially reduce the height of the railings from 1.5 metres to 1.2. The gated accesses have been removed, so there's no impingement on that for the residents, and the railings themselves would be finished in a black colour, so a more traditional colour rather than the green. We've sought advice from the highway engineers just to confirm that they're happy with the changes and that doesn't cause a problem given the use of the right-of-way there. They've come back and said that they had no highway safety concerns other than to say that reflective strips should be provided on either end of the railings just to improve visibility at night, given that it was going to be black in colour. As such, it's recommended that the application be granted permission subject to the updated conditions set out on page 13 of the report. And just to go briefly through the slides, this is the site that we looked at last time. So the alignment of the railings, which was sort of depicted by the dotted yellow line, that remains the same. There's a couple of little returns on the end of the railings just to, I guess, add stability, but that's not unusual for something like that. And then it's now been illustrated that the railings will now be 1.2 metres high. So that's everything. Thank you, Chair. Any questions?
Thank you, David. Yep. Any questions on the application? Councillor Jones.
Yes, Chair. Obviously, there's been alterations to the previous application. Can I presume that the residents affected are happy with all the alterations that are in the report?
The application hasn't gone out for another full publicity exercise. The extent of the consultation was in terms of highways. This was essentially in response to the points raised by the committee members. So on that basis, given that I think it was discussed in the meeting to reduce, and it was raised by the public speakers, to reduce it down to about 1.2. I know there was a bit of debate as to whether that was too low or not, given how the right-of-way could be used. But in any case, Welsh Water happy with that, and Highways are happy with that.
So, David, Welsh Water haven't spoken to anybody since?
I'm not aware of them approaching the residents themselves, no.
Can I just jump in there? Councillor Jones, I have on good authority that the residents are in fact happy with the new proposal, and they're more than happy to proceed with the way that the fence is being laid out.
Oh, that's fine, Chair. If you've had that information, that's fine. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? No? Any comments? No? Brilliant. If we have someone to move that,
could I just clarify, Chair, before you move forward,
certainly
that what is actually being moved is the conditions listed at the bottom of page 12 and onto page 13. So they are the 4 conditions on those 2 pages.
So, provided that information, then have we got someone who would move the conditions there?
I move, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Clive Tavi, I'll take that as you seconding.
Yes, I'll second, yes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. If we could take that to the vote then.
Okay, so could all councillors in agreement with the officer's recommendations please raise their hands? Yeah, that's carried unanimously, Chair.
Thank you very much. If everybody can lower their hands for me, fantastic. So moving on then to agenda item number 5, that's P250253, and that's 63 Brecon Rise, Pant in Merthyr. And again, I believe I'm handing it back to David.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Screen share again. Okay, so this application relates to a parcel of land that currently forms part of the garden area of 63 Brecon Rise. The site itself is located in a cul-de-sac, largely surrounded by residential properties, with a group of garages to the west, and this is the group of garages just there. Planning permission is sought for the construction of a 2-bedroom bungalow to the side of 63 Brecon Rise. It would directly front onto the cul-de-sac and would have its own private driveway to accommodate 1 parking space, and this would be accessed directly off the cul-de-sac as well. Whilst no concerns have been raised in respect to the proposal by the consultees, it has been noted that 15 letters of objection were received from the local residents, and a summary of those concerns are highlighted in the report. In general, they sort of relate to the impact on the highway in terms of traffic and parking, impacts on residential amenity in terms of overlooking, disturbance and pollution, amongst some other issues there. The site is located in an urban residential area, and so the principle of the development to accommodate a bungalow is deemed to be acceptable and compatible with the surrounding uses. The general design of the bungalow is considered to be appropriate for the site, which seeks to minimise those overbearing and privacy concerns in the scale of the development. The design of the existing properties in the surrounding area also have some variation, so whilst those around the cul-de-sac are sort of generally 2-storey, there are some nearby bungalows around the corner, and so it's felt that the the introduction of a bungalow, which is slightly different in style to the other houses, would not in itself look out of context for the surroundings. Sufficient parking has been provided to support the development, and no highway safety concerns have been raised by the head of engineering, although it is not acknowledged that at times the parking in the area can be constrained. I'll show some photos later, but essentially you've got the garages to the side. I think these garages correspond to the various properties within the cul-de-sac, and then they also have a parking space in front of those garages, but you also get occasions where people are also parking within the cul-de-sac road or on some of the pavements as well at times. So taking into account the scale of its proximity of neighbouring properties, there is no significant overbearing concerns. It's noted that there is a degree of overlooking as it exists at present due to the low boundary walls, particularly with the houses to the sort of the south there. As such, there's not considered to be any greater loss of privacy than that which already exists, and this can also be addressed by condition to ensure that suitable boundary fencing is put in place between those properties. The site is not deemed to be of significant ecological value. However, a number of features would be introduced, including planting and bird boxes, which would provide some ecological enhancements. So overall, the development is deemed to be acceptable, and it complies with the relevant LDP policies, and accordingly it's recommended that the application be approved subject to the conditions on page 30 to 32. So, as I say, the red outline here, that's the extent of the curtilage for 63 Brecon Rise. That sort of gives just an example of the context, so largely residential, and as you can see there, there's vehicles that sometimes park in front of the garages and within the cul-de-sac turning area, I guess. So this is the current arrangement for the proposal. So you've got 63 Brecon Rise to the side. They would obviously lose their side garden to accommodate the development. It would be single story, fronting onto the main road. They've got a small annex on the back. There's an area of garden space around that, and just here to the left is the parking space with a crossover from the main highway there. So this just gives you an idea of the small scale nature of the proposal. So the access is from the front. You've got 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, kitchen, and a sort of a shared lounge dining area. In terms of how it would look, you've got a couple of illustrations there. So the top left, that's how it would look from the front within the cul-de-sac. At the moment, there's a solid boundary wall, which is not too far off the height of the front elevation as it stands. Obviously, this would introduce windows and doors. I don't think that's a particular problem in terms of the character of the area. To the rear then you can see you've got the single story flat roof annex which accommodates the living space. I'll show you some photos which will shine a better light on this, but you can see they've tried to illustrate there's vegetation in parts of the garden, and other parts of the site are a little bit more open with low boundary walls, which can, as I say, be addressed with proper boundary treatments. So the top picture, the 2 pictures are looking from the property to the houses to the south. You can see that part of the boundary is already screened by conifers and trees along there, but there's a section at the bottom end of the property which is a little bit more open. But the boundary wall itself, as you can see in the top there, in relation to the children's play equipment, is quite a low wall. I'm not quite sure what the exact dimensions are of it, but it's probably less than 1.5 meters high. So if you had a typical garden fence there, that would be about 1.8. So you might have a slight increase in height of the wall there if they put a fence along a section of that, and that would sufficiently screen as you would normally get between gardens any privacy issues. But in any case, as it stands, this is already used as garden, so there would be no additional impact because it's still intended to be used as a garden. So this is the current site at the moment. So 63 Brecon Rise on the far left. The start of the garages are on the right. In effect, a section of that wall would be lost, and you'd have a crossover to lead into the driveway. And then obviously the wall would be effectively replaced with the front elevation of the new bungalow. And then this is kind of just to show you what it's like in terms of the parking and the sort of the garages. So at the top you can see you've got the access coming into the cul-de-sac with the garages on the side and parking spaces in front of them. I believe these are associated with the individual houses within the cul-de-sac because they don't have their own private driveways. You do get occasional vehicles parking on the pavements or at the end of the cul-de-sac as well. I've seen some photos where people are parking on the large pavement here to the side of the garage, which is not supposed to take place in any case. So yeah, I think that's everything. So thanks, Chair. Any questions?
Yeah. Any questions? Councillor Jones?
Bear with me, Chair, I got 4. First of all, David, you did say in your introduction that the side garden of number 63 would be utilised to part of building this property. So has the owner of 63 Brecon Rise agreed for this plot of land at the side garden to be handed over to the developer of this bungalow?
I believe the applicant is the residents of number 63.
Ah, right.
It's their application. So yeah, they're essentially giving up. I think I'd have to double check actually if it shows. Yeah, so part of the proposal I think would result in the loss of that side extension there, you see, in order to accommodate part of the development. Let me double check that. But yeah, it's yeah, so there's the side of the house. So at the moment there would be an extension here, I think. So that site, the existing side extension to 63, that would be lost, and then they would obviously then build the house, and the land would be given over to that development. So it would run flush with the side of the main part of the house.
Yeah, it's a bungalow, isn't it?
Yes, it's a bungalow. Yes.
Right. Okay. My other 3 questions. If members look at page 23 of the report, it lists 15 objections there from residents in Brecon Rise. On the 3rd dot down, it says vehicles would have to reverse out of the site over neighbouring land in front of their garage. Can you tell me if that is correct?
I'll bring up the plan that shows the property, the red sort of rectangle at the end there, that would be the crossover. That essentially runs alongside. So you've got the garage building, you've got the driveways in front of those garages, and so this would essentially run alongside. It would be a crossover. So I don't think that land would be in their ownership. I think it would be part of the adopted highway, as I believe it is already. But they would obviously have to form a crossover. So if I go to photos, so you've got the garage here. So the driveway, the wall is at an angle at the moment, but obviously with the wall being cut back, there would be a driveway that comes across at an angle.
It goes across the pavement, the highway there.
Yeah, so you see on the bottom photo, you've got a straight section there, and then the wall returns up. Well, that section of the wall, and a bit more of the wall, will be lost. So the driveway effectively runs parallel to the side of the garage there, into the site.
Right, okay. The next question is the fourth dot down, which says there are windows directly on the boundary, which may cause an issue with people walking along the footway. Can you explain that sentence?
Well, I think that's how they've put it across. I'm not sure exactly what concern they have with that. It's not unusual where you've got terrace properties across the borough where they front on directly onto the highway and you have a window there. It doesn't seem to be a problem. It's not overlooking any private garden area, so I don't think it causes any issue with that. So I'm not quite entirely sure what their concern is with there being a window there. I mean, there is a situation where somebody walking along the footpath, may be able to look in through the windows, I suppose, but that would be like you would have on a terrace, and it's for the people to decide how they want to address that with blinds or curtains, etc.
Okay, and we know at the next dot down from the one I just mentioned, overlooking from windows could result in a lost privacy and impact on the enjoyment of amenity spaces.
So I believe they're referring to on the back. I can't quite see it on this angle here, but that bottom photo, as you can see, you've got a patio door on the side. Well, two patio doors on the side, one on the side of the annex, one on the rear. On the other side, I believe there's a window. That probably shows it better. So there's a window on the side of the lounge, and there's a little window serving the hallway, which is set back on the main part. I think that their concern is probably in relation to that. But as I said earlier, a large part of the boundary is already screened with trees. There is a section there which I suppose you could argue there would be a window towards that, towards those property. But as it stands now, because that's already a garden area, you can already walk straight up to that wall and see into the garden without any hindrance. We think that the building itself, the bungalow, is sufficiently far away to not cause an issue in terms of overlooking between windows. But there would be, obviously, without any boundary treatment there would be some potential to look into the garden, I guess, but that's only purely because it's a low boundary. So typically within a rear garden, you might have a 1.7, 1.8 fence, which takes it just above your eyesight. So I think we've got a condition on there to agree the boundary details, and I think we would probably look for a fence of a similar height to just be located there to secure that privacy, so there would be no loss of privacy. And given that the bungalow is a bungalow with no dormers or rear, roof lights, there's no overlooking concern from the upper levels.
Okay, thank you for those answers.
Okay. We done, Clive, yet? Councillor Salmon.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick comment first. I don't think the photographs on display here today show the true extent of the parking issues in this really small cul-de-sac. And I do believe that a resident from the area sent in photographs showing the parking issues, but they missed the deadline, so they couldn't be shown here today. David, can I ask, is there anyone available from Highways in the meeting tonight?
I'm not aware of anyone from Highways here today, no.
Maybe somebody else could answer then, maybe yourself. Does anyone from Engineering Highways attend the site at different times of the day to see what parking conditions are actually like? Because you've got 9 houses, along with 7 garages, which are not necessarily owned by the householders, which all could be used at different times of the day and night in a really small cul-de-sac. And I just wanted to know, has someone looked into this?
Well, I can't comment on behalf of the highway engineers to what extent they've been on site. it might be the same photos you're referring to I've seen, which may have been passed maybe as part of the objections, which showed parking sort of kind of all over the place. It was, I think, the example we saw, there was cars like mostly parked on the driveways here. There's some ad hoc parking then on the pavements, and I think notably there was a vehicle parked at the bottom on that sort of like a wide pavement section. It probably didn't help that there was also, I think, a delivery or something going on, because there was a vehicle then parked in the road, like a shopping van or something like that. But all of those things in consideration, I don't think it changed the situation. That I accept that there is a bit of a parking constraint in the area. We can't really give too much weight to the fact that people park on pavements and on, because they're not supposed to be doing that anyway. But as I said, in this instance, it doesn't impinge on the parking spaces that are provided along the road or on the in front of the garages, because this would be opening up an existing access. Sorry, not existing. Opening up a new access on the side of the garage there. The development itself would accommodate its own parking space as well, which the highway engineers were happy with. So it shouldn't lead to lots of additional parking on the cul-de-sac. There would be parking provided for the house itself. So it should in effect be no worse than it currently is.
Right, just want to quick question then on that. I believe it's within the report, not in the report today, but if you go back onto the website, it does actually mention that there's a shortfall of parking being put forward for this application, because inside in the curtilage of the property itself, only one parking space is being provided, when really there should be two.
Well, the parking guidelines says that you should provide one parking space per bedroom up to a maximum of 3. So there's no prescription that you have to provide the maximum. This is quite a small property overall. So even though it's a 2-bed, there is, I think it's reasonable that at least one parking space be provided. I suppose, where you've got the crossover in that area of the tarmac there, I suppose there would be capacity for somebody to park on that as well, although that couldn't be considered as a formal parking space because it would be on the highway. But obviously nobody else could park in that area just because it would obviously block their driveway. So if there was a need, say, for a visitor to also park at the site, they could park behind a parked vehicle on the driveway without further impinging on the parking in the area.
I think this is one of the problems, to be honest. The application is asking for a drop curb which will come across the pavement, where a car in one of the photos provided by the residents are already parking. Listen, we know that there's a shortage of parking, and people do park in that sort of area. So that's straight away, you're losing a parking space where somebody already is. Can I ask as well, where that drop curb is going on the outside, how much space would be lost from that as well? Because obviously you're going to have to leave space so somebody can reverse out, as Councillor Clive Jones mentioned.
So the red outline there, you can see it basically comes out on the end of the curve of the road. So you wouldn't normally expect vehicles to be parking on the bend of that junction.
Sorry to butt in, but they do, David. The photographs supplied by residents, it's chaos in there, to be honest. It's a tiny cul-de-sac, and I think you mentioned it's a bit of a parking constraint there. That's a big underestimation, to be honest.
Okay. I mean, I can only give you the advice of the highway engineers.
I think it's just a pity, and I think Councillor Clive Jones has mentioned this in previous planning meetings, that there's never anyone here from engineering and highways. to answer questions and ask, so we can ask him how they came to this conclusion on they see no issues with parking in the area. I've got no further questions for you, but I have got a summing up statement at the end. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Salmon. Craig, you had your hand up to come in. Do you want to still come in on this?
No, it was all sort of covered. Then thanks, Chair.
Thank you. So, following that, any more questions? Not seen anybody's hands up. Any comments then, please? Right, I'll come to Councillor Salmon.
Thank you, Chair. At some of these points I have already raised, but I am going to go back over it. I'd like to make a few observations for consideration. Firstly, in respect of neighbour and community consultation, I note that the submitted information that the applicant attempted to contact one adjoining property, number 65 Brecon Rise, was unsuccessful. While that effort is acknowledged, it does appear limited, particularly given that the property contacted is not affected by what I consider to be the primary issue associated with this proposal, which is parking pressures and highway safety. It's reasonable to conclude that 8 properties in the immediate vicinity would be directly affected by increased parking pressures and associated highway concerns with this proposed development. It's therefore very disappointing that there is no evidence of engagement with the wider group of nearby households. A more meaningful and targeted consultation with those residents who are most likely to experience the real impact of the development could have highlighted concerns at an early stage and may well have led to a more practical and balanced outcome for everyone involved. Turning to highway considerations, I know that engineering and highways have raised no objection to the proposal. However, their own assessment confirms that the development provides only one off-street parking space, whereas the relevant standards would ordinarily require 2, resulting in a clear shortfall. While engineering and highways concludes that this under provision will not have a detrimental impact, I must say I find that position difficult to accept in the context of what we as elected members deal with on a daily basis. Parking issues remain one of the most frequent and persistent complaints raised by both councillors and members of the public. Furthermore, the proposal includes the creation of a new drop curb to serve the parking space. Inevitably, this will result in the loss of existing on-street parking, thereby reducing available capacity on what is already a heavily congested cul-de-sac. This loss, combined with the acknowledged shortfall in on-site provision, will make parking in this area almost unbearable and will no doubt lead to tensions between neighbours. It's disappointing that greater weight has not been given to the cumulative effect of both losing existing on-street parking following the introduction of a drop curb and the introduction of an additional vehicle onto the highway from the proposed new development. Because once planning permission is granted, it's effectively too late to introduce meaningful measures to address the consequences of a development. For that reason, I would have expected a more cautious and pragmatic approach from engineering and highways. Quite simply, this appears to be a case where a greater degree of common sense could and should have been applied. Overall, while I recognise that the scheme has been amended through the pre-app process to address design concerns, I believe the issues relating to limited consultation and inadequate parking provision remain important material considerations for this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Salmon. Is there any other comments? Are there any other comments, I should say? Councillor Clive Jones?
Yes, I just want to reiterate for the nth time, I've raised this, as Councillor Salmon has mentioned, no end of times. We can't go on having planning officers fronting engineers who are not there in the planning meeting, because quite frankly, those dealing with the pressures of parking are council engineers, and they should be in planning, a public meeting, to be answerable to the questions that we are posing now to planning officers. So this problem, Chair, in my opinion, has got to be sorted out for the future. You know, it's not beyond the wit to arrange for an engineer to be present at the planning committee, because I've no doubt that everyone, including the planning officers, were well aware that this would be a major issue in this planning application.
Thank you, Clive. David, quick sort of, it's not so much a comment, it is a question, but it's in regards to invitees of committee meetings. Are the engineering department invited to the committees?
Chair, I'm going to allow you to ask this question, or has it been answered on a number of occasions, but we are actually past the point of questions. We're on comments, and perhaps we can discuss it afterwards if that would be more beneficial. Scott?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much. Sorry, it's more of a question in a thought to Clive's comment, but that's fine. Yeah, so Councillor Jones, Clive?
Yes, thank you. If I can be allowed to make a further comment, there is no reason whatsoever, as there are no engineers present here today, to request that this application is deferred to the next planning committee to ensure that the appropriate engineers are present to answer pertinent questions.
That is perfectly correct, Councillor Jones. Are you actually suggesting that the item be deferred, or are you just making that as a comment?
Well, I'll test the meeting. I move that this item is deferred to the next planning committee. In the meantime, the appropriate engineers are at a request what are told to attend the next planning committee.
Okay, is there anyone prepared to second Councillor Jones's request for a deferment on the grounds that he has stated? Thank you, Councillor Salmon. So we will
sorry,
Geraint,
yes,
Councillor.
Can I also ask, would photographs of the area, parking issues at the area, be able to be included at that meeting so that the engineering can see them and then answer the questions, maybe from members of the committee?
We'll have to have a discussion about that offline, because obviously the public speaking element hasn't taken place this time around, and the photos would have been submitted through that process normally. So we'll just have to go and check exactly as to whether or not we can add in more photos.
Yeah, your point is noted, Councillor Salmon.
A supplementary question then. If this meeting was to go ahead to the next committee, would residents have the chance then to speak at that committee?
I'd have to double or triple check what it says in the Constitution, but I believe, as we haven't had the public speaking take place at this meeting, provided people register within the deadline for the committee that the application is presented back to, then public speaking could be permitted. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Salmon, Craig and I will have a discussion on that outside this, and Craig will get back to you as to whether that's possible.
Okay, thank you both.
Yeah. Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor Clive Jones that the matter be deferred for the reasons given by himself. That has been seconded by Councillor Salmon. We now need to take that to the vote. So could all councillors in agreement for a deferment please raise their hands? That's carried unanimously, Chair. The item will be deferred to the next available planning committee.
Thank you very much. That takes us on then to the next item on the agenda, it's item number 6, and that is application number P260093, Cartrefle, Station Hill, Aberfan, and I'm handing back to Dave Cross again.
There you go, turn the mic on. Okay, thanks, Chair. Okay, so this application, you may recall you had a scheme put forward to committee back in March, I think. This application is essentially to seek an amendment to what was previously approved. The original scheme related to the installation of dormer windows and the construction of an outbuilding to replace a number of structures in there. So this application is being presented to committee because the applicant themselves works within the development control in the building control division. In essence, permission is being sought for the installation of an additional dormer window in the front roof plane. So there'll be 3 dormers instead of just 2. It would be of the same design and size as the other dormers previously consented, and its position within the roof would respect the overall character and appearance of that property. There'd be no concerns raised as a result of the publicity exercise or the consultee exercise. Therefore, it's been recommended that the application be granted permission subject to the conditions set out on page 38 and 39. And just to remind you of the proposal, that's the extent of the site. It's got a fairly large side garden. So the elevations are the same as the previous scheme that was granted. The only addition is the central dormer. The other 2 on either side were granted permission as part of the previous scheme. And as you can see, it follows the general rhythm and pattern of the elevations. So we're quite happy with its design. And that's the property as it stands with the garden to the side. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Are there any questions? No, nobody's got their hand up. Are there any comments? No. If I could have someone to propose the application, please.
I move,
I'll
Chair.
propose it.
Fabulous. And I got hands up to second as well, so fantastic.
Could we just be clear as to who seconded it?
Yeah, who's Dave Isaac? You've seconded it?
Yeah,
Fabulous.
I propose it, or Clive can propose it, and
Thank you. As long as it's been proposed and seconded and we know who's done it, I'm happy.
We'll take that. Fabulous. Thank you. Right then, take it to the vote then.
Okay, so could all councillors in agreement with the officer's recommendation please raise their hands? That's carried unanimously, Chair.
Fabulous. Items 7 and 8 are information reports, so we will not be going through those. And item number 9 is any other business deemed urgent by myself. I have none. So thank you very much for your attendance this evening and have a good night.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Ta-ra.
Bye.
Ta-ra.
Good evening all.
Thanks, Chair.
For now.
thank you, Chair. Night all.
Ta-ra.
Chair.